let us not be influenced by British culture when it comes to taking in rap artists, because that's a different kettle of fish. Everyone is allowed to express themselves equally, but is that really the case? Oh, I don't know why they're not as big as they should be. It's because it's entertaining to hear stories of poverty when it comes to UK rappers on talk shows.
My baby looking too good, yeah, she perfect. No, she worth it. When she pull up, all them man, them flirting. And yeah, she know that she a dime. Call up on my line, told her, baby, bring it one time. Yeah, girl, sit down and relax.
Yo, what's really good, Dosey Girl? Yezzir. You are locked in, listening or watching to another banging episode of Hey Sis UK, of course. I know we're in the UK, but we are internationally known, best believe. And we're here to give you the real conversations, saying what others may be too afraid to say, and then we're going to have some sisters and brothers along the way joining us on the show. So, today, darling, I was sitting down. I was with a friend. We were taking in a body of work from a rapper, and you know me. If it's not your first time listening to the show, you know I love me a little hip-hop, okay? I love it. I love music. I write music myself. I've executive produced a few things, but as a true lover of the art form that is hip-hop, not only the music, but the culture, there's something that I've been noticing. So I've taken in a few award shows as of recent, and I've looked at the trajectory of some people's careers and the culture of hip-hop. Even though hip-hop is supposed to be a set culture, it seems like the expectations and the way in which the culture is differs from country to country, but not in a way that's favorable. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about why is it that the UK industry emphasizes on wanting humble rappers. Like, for me, it feels like such a juxtaposition, because humble and rap, as in hip hop as a whole, for me, it doesn't go together. And I'll tell you why. Because you're probably thinking from the offset, oh, but it's good to be humble. It's good to show humility. I'm not talking about in that case. But before we go any further in the episode, I need you to be subscribed to the YouTube channel. I need you to be following us on Instagram. That is Hey Sis _UK. And of course, we got the website, heysisuk.co.uk. You need to go there. You need to subscribe to the mailing list, because we're going to have so much going on. We're talking about events. Oh yeah, we're going to be outside. We're talking about giveaways. We're talking about newsletters that give you all the jam-packed information you need, especially when you're on the go. We're talking about easy access for you to have a safe space to talk about things. We're going to have expert writers on the website as well, not just the show. Yes, indeed. And we're here to make sure that you are seen, you are heard, and that you feel safe in this space. And I feel like when we've put out certain things over on, your TikToks and your Instagrams, whatever, it allows access to everybody. And we're a public page, of course. But sometimes, and it meant so much to me, especially when I did the hair episode about not touching my hair, the response was split. And it's not an even split, best believe that. But the fact that certain opinions were able to intercept a space of a woman like myself expressing myself about my own boundaries, it was like, yeah, this is why we need a space of our own. So if you haven't signed up to Hey Sis UK, make sure you do that. heysisuk.co.uk. So let's get into this. So we're going to deep dive into rap. Now, rap's origin is about, being poetic in the form of protesting. You have your public enemies that will literally say, yo, we're not happy with the system when it comes to politics, the police system, imprisonment, things like that. You have your public enemies, you have your NWAs. You know what the N is for, with attitude, because it's being able to express yourself. Your Curtis Blows that would say, I'm not happy with the environment, the state of affairs in our country, and this is how I want to express that through the rhythm that is rap. Obviously, we go on to have more fun genres that encourage, dancing and drinking and partying and things of that nature. But I want to talk about the expressiveness of it all, and the UK market specifically. There is this trend of receiving awards, and people expect rappers to, be very, very grateful to be given these things, almost to the point where you feel like it's been handed, but it hasn't been handed. It's been there through very hard work. And obviously, when you look at the infrastructure of UK rap, it's very much built on pirate radio, youth centres, and council estates. And there's this expectation of, oh, you need to remember where you come from. So you need to show a bit of humility. There's a difference between understanding where you come from and you understand your rags to riches story. But it shouldn't be something that is kind of, I don't know, dangled above your head in a sense of, I want you to remember where you're from because I want you to always know that that is where you belong. But if someone's worked very hard to be out of that space and made a better life for themselves where they feel like they can have certain things and a family, why do I have to carry where I've come from on my head? Like I said, there's a difference between being able to give back to your community and someone else that's not necessarily from your community expecting you to mention it at every occurrence. And the reason why I say that, even though UK rap is something where we have been able to, get awards, chart on your, billboards and make lives for ourselves in regards to money, there are still racial undertones when it comes to UK rap. A lot of the times I see big talk shows, and whenever they're interviewing the rappers, they don't really ask questions related to the music, as in like your process of doing things. It's always about, I want to know how poor you were. And it makes me a bit uncomfortable because when you've seen a rapper who, this isn't their first rodeo, they've had loads of opportunities of success, why does it feel like it's entertaining to hear stories of poverty when it comes to UK rappers on talk shows? Why is it that you never ask about the musicality, the excellence? Because when I see people from other genres go on talk shows, people always ask them about maybe their family setup, their partner. Oh, we saw you on holiday at this place, but you were wearing this outfit. Give us an explanation behind that. But when it's rappers, it's always about something in regards to their past. A past that has been left behind them 10 years plus. But that's always brought up in a sense of, for me, I want you to know that I know exactly where you come from and I'm always going to have that opinion of you, not the person you present to me today. So in the American industry, you have a lot of very confident rappers. You got your Yezzi, your Kanye West, your Nicki Minaj's. They're not meek. And in the UK industry, it's like you're rewarded for being meek. You're rewarded for not being too confident. You're rewarded for allowing other people to toot your horn. But if you're a rapper from a genre that expects you to be confident, but not too confident because you have to allow someone else to toot your own horn, what do you do at the point when no one's tooting your horn? But you still have a lot to say. You still have the craft that you work hard to build. In America, they are very much, they celebrate having confidence, ambition, being flashy. In British culture, is very much anti-flash. We want you to be meek. We want you to be humble. We want you to stay rooted. And if you get too big for your boots, you get cut down to size. And I've always found that to be quite strange because when you see other genres, when you see rock artists, when you see punk artists, they've always been rewarded for being out there. They've always been celebrated for being confident. They've even been encouraged to misbehave. When you see a Liam Gallagher's, when you see a Ozzy Osbourne's. Remember, Ozzy Osbourne even got a reality show on certain platforms where they weren't even allowing other artists to have their music videos shown because it was too graphic. It was encouraging alcohol, violence, sexual nudity. But the Osbournes wasn't exactly the Teletubby show, okay? It was very much out there from the behavior of the adults and the behavior of the children. And I'm not saying that to say, oh, I'm judging, but I'm just saying that it's so funny how in British media, two people can act the same way, but it's perceived in two different ways. When people are historically seen to, trash hotel rooms and throw TVs out the window, oh, that's the rock and roll lifestyle that we expect, rock on. But when rappers maybe wear big chains, loud outfits, the cars are there when you pull up, you see it from a mile away, it's very much, oh, how ghetto. We don't like that. It's like everything's cool until someone else does it. And I'm not trying to say, oh, it's a thing of, oh, I'm trying to do us against them. No, I'm talking about beyond race, and it's race, it's class, it's attitudes towards things, because they've been built in a certain way that you can get this far but not too high up. And the reason why we want you to stay that way is that we'll throw words at you like, oh, now you need to be humble. We want to remind you where you come from every step of the way. So no matter how many suits you wear, or if a rapper tries to rebrand themselves, no longer using their alias but the actual government name, the opening conversation is, oh, you were once a criminal, right? And sometimes I see some artists' face where they're like, okay, I wasn't expecting that question, or oh, we're going to start from there. It's like you're sunning someone. It's like you're setting the tone of, I want everyone who may have this first impression of you on this talk show to know this is where you come from. So the reason why I wanted to tap into that is because it's not only just in American culture where they reward their MCs for being confident, for being ambitious. You see it in Caribbean culture as well. When you see Vibes Cartel, when you see Beanie Man, when you see all these people, the first thing when they come on stage is, yes, we want to see that aggression in a good way. We want to see you be braggadocious. We want to see you in your designer threads. We want to see what you've acquired for yourself. And we like that. We admire that about you. Imagine being a quiet rapper. I'm not talking about someone that's quiet in nature, but just like very reserved to themselves. And then when it comes to the time of being on stage, you're like that as well. You're supposed to be a performer. You're supposed to put on a show for us. When you see Prince with the guitar and the outfit and the way he is on stage, people admire that. But when it comes to hip hop, in the UK industry, it's another story. And I don't think enough people call it out. If you see people go on stage and they're crying for this award, and, you know, they're very thankful to, not saying, oh, thank God, but I'm saying they're thankful to everybody. The next day when they're doing the write-up, oh, this person's so lovely, they're so approachable, they're so nice. And I've seen where there's a lot of rappers who come from, let's just say, your typical backgrounds. Maybe they're from London, South London to be specific, and they are nice. They are nice. They don't really have a dark past about them. And it's always this rapper's so nice and approachable. They're so approachable. And it got me thinking, why is it a shock that someone that's worked hard to be in a certain position and to some degree be a businessman, why should it be a shock to you that they're approachable? Do you expect them to be undignified? Do you expect them to act in an animalistic way? That's why some may say it's nitpicking, but we need to ask these questions for certain newspaper platforms. Why do you choose the wording you choose when it comes to referring to rappers, typically black men or black women, in a certain way? So the gratefulness of it all for me is just, it gets very disingenuous, because not gratefulness in regards to a rapper being grateful, but it's when you admire the gratefulness so much. It's like, oh, we're begging to be in these spaces. And my thing is that UK rap has done so many phenomenal things and so many records being broken. I think we get past the stage of being grateful and saying that, okay, we've made an impact here. We deserve to be here. If anything, you should be admiring what we do, not asking us how grateful we are to be here. And I think to myself, when will that change? I don't know. When I talk about the racial undertone when it comes to UK rappers in the British scene, and I'm going to call it the British music scene because it's different when you talk about Caribbean artists. It's very different when you talk about American artists. And I say this because people say, oh, you know, it has nothing to do with race. Cool. And if that's the case, we've seen in the last couple of years that when you have black rappers go on mainstream stages and express themselves as you would expect from artists who these same stages will say there's no difference. We allow artists to express themselves in the way in which they believe so. And remember, they're booked, they're paid to do these things. Most of the time they're invited. And we saw what in 2019 when Dave was at the Brit Awards and he performed Black. Ofcom, oh my God, the complaints. Why? He expressed himself in an unapologetic and bold way. Hey, I see you listening, but you haven't liked, you haven't subscribed, and I know you haven't dropped a comment, so I need you to go ahead and do that. As in now. I'm going to sip on my Chapmans of London. You go ahead and do that. Yeah, I think that's enough time. Let's get back to the episode. Now, when we talk about racial undertones when it comes to music, a lot of people in major platforms will say, oh, when it comes to creatives and artists, everyone is allowed to express themselves equally. But is that really the case? Because when you have black rappers express themselves as artists unapologetically and bold, we've seen way too many times where they're punished for it or scrutinized for doing that. When Dave performed Black at the Brit Awards, the Ofcom complaints were crazy. He didn't hurt anybody, he expressed himself as a poet, a rapper. When we saw Stormzy at Glastonbury, again, people had complaints about the songs he performed and were offended by his clothes because he was wearing a bulletproof vest designed by Banksy himself. This is all art, expression, but when you do it too confidently, it offends people. But people say no, that there's no difference. There is a difference. And it's about, unfortunately, not the message most of the time, but the messenger. And if the messenger isn't someone that you want to see it come from, that's where the offense comes in. I mean, the evidence shows all the complaints. So whether it's radio, whether it's your major award platforms, media outlets, it seems like people use being humble as a subtle form of control. We control you because you look grateful. You look grateful enough, we will reward you. If you look too confident, too cocky, we will punish you indirectly or directly, but you will know who it's coming from. I'm not imagining these things. These things are actually happening. So I want to talk about where we flip the narrative, yeah? And let people know that confidence isn't the enemy or something to be frightened about. It's fuel for artists. It helps them to be their best form of themselves when they're on stage. If you're telling someone, oh, are you nervous? Or did you expect people to like it? Or did you have any regrets about this project or anything you would do differently? For me, these are all very triggering questions. Now, remember, as an artist and someone that also interviews, I'm in two minds. And a lot of the time when we see British media, we see people with leading questions. And I hate force-feeding questions to people. So, for example, you'll say, oh, you have a song on the album. What was it like when you were creating this? Now, you see that question allows someone to explore their own wording, their own thoughts, and tell me how they really feel in that moment. But if I say, oh, you've got a song called Black Power. Did you have any reservations when making this song? Were you scared about some of the backlash you might get when it comes to radio play? You see how I'm forcing someone to put their mindset in a place that doesn't allow them to be confident and unapologetic about their process, their art form that they're creating. And I want people to call it out more. It's like when you see that interview with Serena Williams, a young Serena Williams, I'm talking a child, and she's talking to the interviewer and he's like, oh, are you confident that you'll win? And she's like, yeah. And then the interviewer goes, you seem really confident. Why is that? Are you sure? These are all words to make someone doubt their excellence. And again, I'm not trying to lead the conversation with race, but I'm leading the conversation saying that it's very interesting, if not peculiar, that when people look like me and we have a sense of confidence about what we do, especially we work hard for it as well, we will only be rewarded these things if we show that we're very grateful. I'm talking to the point of Oliver Twist with a bowl in hand asking for more, sir. Can I have some more? And if we don't look like Oliver Twist in certain rooms, you don't get anything. And it's sad at that point. And that's why I say that. What happens if we don't pander? What happens if we're not grateful? What happens if we lead the conversation with talent? Because a lot of artists are allowed to be talented without having to do the theatrics, without having to do the trauma Olympics, without having to do poverty porn for major platforms. It's there. So yeah, I want to say that when it comes to the fans, because I still believe that as much as you might have major labels and major platforms that will sink money into artists that some of them don't even work, and they sink money into other artists where it does work, I still believe people power is still a very powerful thing. And as UK consumers of music, we need to allow freedom of expression when it comes to rappers. freedom of expression to say, you know what, if you're confident and you've got the talent to back that confidence, go ahead and do your thing. We shouldn't have this knee-jerk reaction of when we see a confident rapper, we go, oh, they're cocky, or who do they think they are? It is rap music. It wouldn't be what it is if you didn't have the confidence, if you didn't have the attire. And I'm not talking about the attire in the materialistic form, but I'm talking about the attire of confident, knows what they're doing, and very good at it. Tick, tick, tick. There's nothing wrong with that. Especially when we are in love with a culture that has come from different countries. Rap didn't originate from the UK. So when we're talking about rap originators and influencers, and we look at America and we look at the Caribbean and we look at parts of Africa, we need to look at how they celebrate their people. You know, when they have their artists come to town, it's very much, yo, I'm so happy this person's here. We're so grateful to have you here. And they hail them up. Let's be okay that when we have our artists, we hail them up. Let us not be influenced by British culture when it comes to taking in rap artists, because that's a different kettle of fish. We are supposed to encourage, admire, and say, you know what, talk up your thing. Talk it up. Talk that talk, especially if you can back it, because that's what American artists and their fan bases do. They encourage them. Oh, you got a house, we want to see you in a bigger house. Oh, you fly in this class, we want to see you in a jet. I don't know why it's so different in the UK, but it's because of that British influence. And I'm sorry, but it doesn't benefit us to take on a British mindset when it comes to black music. We are not going to have successful R&B artists. We are not going to have successful hip hop artists in the UK if we take on a British mentality towards our artists. We need to take on the same mentality as American fan bases, as Caribbean fan bases, and African fan bases, if we really care about seeing success when it comes to music of black origin. Because like I said, when we look at the rock and roll fan bases, when we look at the punk fan bases, and I know punk has gone, it's not about like that, but when we talk about rock and roll and country music, they hail up. When I go to the O2 and I'm going somewhere else, I'm not necessarily going to a concert, I see it sold out. Some of these acts I've never heard of before, but people go far and wide for them. It isn't a thing of, oh, they're too old. Oh, who do they think they are? And that's another thing I'm not really happy about. We humble our artists when we don't need to do that. And one of the things that we like to do in hip hop, and I will talk about it from the UK standpoint because we don't see this in the American market. Why is it in the UK industry when it comes to the rap? For exclusive members-only invites, prize giveaways, and staying in the loop with your favourite online family, come and join Hey Sis UK officially on www.heysisuk.co.uk. That's www.heysisuk.co.uk. What are you waiting for? I'll see you there. For me, I just find it sad because when we look at the American fan bases and we look at the Caribbean fan bases and African fan bases when it comes to their rap artists, they're very much held up. They're encouraged to be the best version of themselves. In the UK, if we continue to take this British mindset towards music of black origin, there's always going to be that disconnect. We're always going to have artists that we go, oh, you know what? You know, they're not really appreciated. They're the underdog. Oh, you know, I don't know why they're not as big as they should be. It's because you took a British mindset towards genres of music of black origin. When we talk about hip hop and we talk about R&B, there's one of the things as well that we need to stop doing. We don't face it with a British mindset, and we also don't age shame. In America, rappers are not age shamed to the heights that they do in England. I'm not saying it doesn't exist in America, but in England it's very much hang your coat up and hang it up early. We need someone else in there. But we would have bigger concerts, we would have bigger tours, we would have richer genres if we allowed everyone to exist in one space. But because we're so big on, oh, aren't you this age? Oh, don't you have any children? Oh, haven't you been doing this for a while? We're not able to allow our artists to grow. Now, some of the people that pushed through that negative talk, we've now seen them flourish. But if they listen to the noise outside of, oh, they've been doing this for way too long, we wouldn't have the rappers that we have today. And you know the names. I don't need to say the names, but you know the names I'm talking about. So I say this to say that if you are an artist listening to this or you are a consumer, please, any genre you're into, yeah, when it comes to the different genres of hip hop and R&B, look at where that genre is coming from and behave accordingly to that, because that is what's going to propel it to heights that you've never seen before. When you see these big talk shows in British media and you see the way they interact with some of the rappers, I want you to go to Ofcom and report it, because it's very uncomfortable to see people try to size up just how poor you are. Even when you're not poor at that point in time, people say, oh, you know, I heard that you were doing this. I heard you were doing that. Is it true that you did this in your past life? Okay, the rapper's gone to prison. Yeah, they sold drugs. And yeah, they're coming from humble beginnings. But can we talk about where they're at now? Can we talk about what they've achieved? They just went #1. They just built a school in a different country. They've been giving back to their community. I don't understand why this treatment is given to other musicians and actors alike. But when it's us, it's always a different narrative. So let's start calling it out, because I think a lot of people continue to do what they think they can get away with until someone calls it out. So, British artists, let's live in the fullness of our creativity without thinking that we need to dim our light in order to be accepted. Let's be able to be creative, be unapologetic, and be bold. Because even when I talked about the complaints with Dave's performance at the Brit Awards and Stormzy's performance at Glastonbury, they're still living very successful careers. So guys, before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, drop a comment. You've been watching or listening to another banging episode of Hey Sis. Stay blessed. Bye.
Because she moved like a queen and I like what I see and I wanna get more of that.
I undress and he blows success. Lay down as you decompress. Come mine and forget the stress. But the 9 to 5 cause he tryna change his life. He can't help it but to show his bad side. So call me Yezzi when he want that good ride. Follow my stride, you know you want a good time.